Welcome to another episode of VGN Weekly. Members of the Virtual Grip crew will recap the previous week's races and bring us one-on-one interviews with racers, league owners, and commentators, as well as others from within the sim racing community. Please like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our broadcasts. If you are a league owner or potential sponsor and have a broadcasting need, please visit virtualgrip.net for info on how to get in touch with us. Thanks for tuning in today. Now let's go find some grip.
As the Virtual Grip Network gears up for another action-packed week of sim racing, let's take a quick look back at last week's race winners. On Thursday, Eric Stout was able to claim his impressive 5th win of the season in a green-white checkered finish at South Boston Speedway with Red Light Racing. On Saturday, Chris Davis took the race lead 20 laps in and ran unchallenged the rest of the way to take his 2nd win of the season in the Bootleg Racing League's Outlaw SK Modified Series. Later that night, Chris Davis did it again, taking the race lead early and running away with it to take a checkered flag in the Bootleg Racing League's Late Model Series, again from South Boston Speedway. Closing out the week on Sunday, Andrew Koska used a flawless pit cycle to get the race lead with 80 laps remaining and held everyone off to take the win at Phoenix Raceway with the OBRL. Now let's take a quick break before turning things over to John Hine, who's standing by with this week's special guest, Eric Stout from Red Light Racing.
And welcome back to VGN Weekly. I am your host, John Hine, and this week I am going to be joined by Eric Stout of Red Light Racing. And Eric is quite the accomplished racer there in Red Light. His first race was at New Smyrna with them back in 2020. Since then, he's gone on to have 88 starts, including 18 poles, 13 wins, 27 top fives, and he's also got a championship to boot. He is a current point leader of Red Light Racing. He's also coming off a win last week at South Boston that you can see right here on VGN. And Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I touched on winning last week, and I'm not, I don't know if there's a better definition of a hot streak. You've won 4 out of the last 5 races here this season. So tell me about your season so far. How's it been, the highs and lows?
I think it's been a really good season. My teammate AJ and I have been putting in a lot of work, and I think that those results are obviously showing up on the track. At least with respect to our qualifying position and where we're running each week, we're running up front, although not always finishing up front. Depending on some on-track incidents. Unfortunately, he and I got together this past week at Sobo. The prior week at USA, I had a little contact on a restart when I was leading and ended up finishing 8th, which was still a good finish. And AJ was able to bring home the win that night. So yeah, it's been a good season. I think the racing overall has been really good. We had a couple squirrely ones. That New Smyrna race start the season where I think we had 26 cars in the field and 26 cars involved in the big one on the backstretch. Was kind of was kind of bizarre, and a little bit of an anomaly. But overall, I think the racing has been really good. Guys showing each other a lot of respect, and there's been some good patience and all the things that we look for. When bringing new guys into the league, and the kind of racing that we want to put on, on the show each week for VGN and all the viewers. Everyone who tunes in, they don't want to see caution laps. They want to see green flag racing, and I think that we've mostly delivered these last several weeks.
Well, it's been really cool to watch this season. You guys have actually put on a show each and every week. So, you can, like I said earlier, you can see them all right here on VGN. Just go out to YouTube and you can watch any of these races. But yeah, you talk about that big one there. And that's a track that produces those quite often because there's really nowhere to go once two people get together. And the speeds are, of you see it, you're in it kind of deal. But 4 out of the 5 wins, and you said your teammate got one of those wins in there. So you, as a team, has packed away 5 wins in a row. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. And I was, leading at Concord. Had an incident, which AJ unfortunately got caught up in as well, because that could have been another one. But yeah, like I said, it's really just it's putting in the time and effort this season. I think has really separated us. We've been spending a lot of time actually using the telemetry through Garage 61, which is not something that we have really done a lot in the past. So we've been able to learn a lot through that work, and really just being on track together, pushing each other, trying to find those extra tenths or hundredths or even thousands. In some cases, we had the race at Lanier earlier this season that I was able to win, and I beat AJ by, I think it was 0.02 of a second to take the pole. If that's 0.02 the other way, he probably goes on to lead all 100 laps and win that race. So it's really just been razor thin, and those little margins, and the success in qualifying, I think, has really been the key to our season.
You mentioned Garage 61. I'm not really familiar with that. I actually have VRS that I usually use on the road side of things to get
Yep.
setups and that. And I've never used that telemetry. They have it. So what do you use? I mean, what do you look at, and what kind of telemetry do they have over there?
So I actually use VRS as well. So I have
Okay.
both, but Garage 61 is free, so that makes it a little more accessible for people. But really, we're just looking at our inputs, and racing line, and experimenting with first lap or second lap, money lap situations for qualifying, and then just comparing that information to one another. Kind of each time we lay down the next best lap, we'll kind of pull that up and compare it and figure out, like, what did we do differently. How can we adjust and try to repeat it, because that's really the thing is, you can lay down one great one, but if you can't repeat it, it's really not very useful. So for us, it's been trying to key in on those things that we're doing. That's creating speed and finding speed that particular week, and then just trying to groove it and repeat it. So by the time we show up Thursday night, basically all of our work is done. We're ready to go, and just try to go execute.
Well, that's pretty wild that you guys use that and all that, because yeah, I've like I said, I got VRS. I've never thought about actually using the telemetry. I mean, I could understand it on the road side, but now I'm gonna have to go back and reevaluate using it on the oval side, because the road, it's that stuff's great. You can see your braking points and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So that's that Garage 61. There's a free plug for those guys here. So free for folks to use, and
Yeah.
now you're gonna have everybody in your league going out and looking at that. So I might have just made your path to a championship this season a little bit harder. So, but speaking of a championship, you guys are getting now down the home stretch of your season. You've got a pretty healthy point lead. Um, do you start points racing? Are you going to change your approach a little bit to just, maybe not take a chance here or there? I mean, how does your mindset change now?
Mindset doesn't actually change at all. I don't think that I approach a race or in the race particularly aggressively at any particular moment, unless you're like you know 10, 15, 20 laps to go, something like that, and you feel like you've got a real shot at getting by someone. But like this week, for example, I during our testing, AJ and I had simulated some restart scenarios, and I was actually able to have some success on the outside because exiting the corner as the leader on the inside, if you get pinched off a little bit and you can't take that full run out to the wall, it sacrifices some speed. And the high side at South Boston can be effective, so you're able to get a little bit bigger of a run down the front stretch and carry more speed. So I think we had a caution around 30 laps into the race. I took the outside and AJ was able to beat me for the lead, so I followed him around for like 60 laps. I felt like I was a little better than him with about 20 to go. I did get inside him. I think we made slight contact. He was able to hold me off, and I just kind of said, you know what, that's good enough. I don't want to take a chance and ruin both our nights. And then obviously, unfortunately, we got together, come into the white flag there at the end after a restart when I was on the outside. It actually did have the advantage, I felt like, but yeah. So I'm gonna continue to put the work in, try to show up and be fast every week, and really just my goal is always just to run all the laps and maximize whatever the night sort of offers. There's a couple of guys locally, so I'm from New England, so obviously pay a lot of attention to the short track racing that goes on up here, especially at Stafford. And there's a couple of guys that race the tour mods and the SK mods at Stafford that I just really like how they approach racing. And the one guy is Matt Hirschman. He runs a variety of tour modified series up here, like wheel and modified tour and the tri track tour. So he's really known for sort of saving his equipment, being there at the end, and not sort of doing anything stupid. And there's a guy also at Stafford whose name is Todd Owen. He's won several championships there, and he never seems to be doing anything spectacular or miraculous. He obviously has good speed, but it's not like he's blowing the doors off everyone every single week. He's really just kind of consistent. And that's the approach that I try to take, and that I'll continue to take. I did want to say though, speaking about like the VRS and the telemetry. So I actually do quite a bit of road racing now. I've ramped that up in like the last year, so I'm really familiar with the telemetry platform that VRS has. But speaking about making my path to a championship maybe a little harder, sort of sharing trade secrets or whatever. I think it's important, as an admin, sort of a steward of the league, if you will. I want our league to be a place where people are improving and getting better and enjoying their racing experience more. So I'll help anyone, that asks. So, all they have to do is ask. Obviously AJ and I work together, and we push each other, and so we're improving each week. I feel like, I've helped some other guys like the Watkins Glen week. Clearly I had a pretty big advantage there. I hosted an open session for some people and shared several private messages with people, offering them sort of some tips and advice. So like I want to win, but I want it to be an environment that everyone enjoys racing in. We have clean racing, like we always say. We want clean and respectful racing, and yeah. So I'm not going to give up all the secrets, I guess, but I'm happy to help anybody. All they gotta do is ask if they perceive like an advantage or anything like that. Um, just try to make it a great place for everyone to race.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about league racing. You race the same guys in and out, so you kind of build a rapport with folks. You know guys, um, and that's where we talk about this being a simulation, and that, to my opinion, is where that really becomes, because in the real world, guys travel up and down the highways together. They'll stop at truck stops and eat and stuff like that. It becomes a family on the road. But as soon as you get on the track, everybody's a competitor, which is unique.
Right.
But when you see a problem happen, you see guys from other teams all pitching in to help, and you see that in iRacing a lot too with what you're saying. And that's really cool that you're offering that and doing that. And I'll tell you, 4 out of 5 wins. Now that you've offered that, I think your phone might blow up here in the next week or so. So before you guys get to Southern National, but yeah, that's really cool that you offer that, and those are the things that strengthen your league, um, and make it a nice place that people want to come racing. When you got people that do that, and um, that is, to me, I mean, open racing is what it is, but that the league racing is just, I think, what makes iRacing so much fun, at least for me anyway. Um,
I completely agree. I came into Red Light I think a little over 3 years ago, maybe even longer than that now.
yep,
I've been an
2020.
admin. There you go. Yeah, I've been an admin with Josh and Rob for I think like 3 years. Um, like my wife kind of jokes, that like AJ is my iRacing wife, because he and I talk basically every day through Messenger. I talk with Josh and Rob, basically every single day. Uh, the guys really do become friends, and there's a lot of great camaraderie. And I think that, at least I approach it like I try to look out for those guys on the track. You don't want to do something stupid or wreck someone, or ruin someone's night,
Yeah.
because it could affect your friendship, sort of outside iRacing. So I would agree. I think that's what I appreciate the most, especially about Red Light, because I think we have a really good group, and we've got a lot of guys that have been with us for a really long time. And I really appreciate the opportunity that Josh gave me to come on and be an admin, and he's given me, I think, a lot of room to sort of have some input and try some things. That's the other thing I really like about our league. Josh is not afraid to like let us try stuff. We've done like longer length races. We brought in Team 53 to do the custom fixed setups. We worked with other shops in the past, and came back to Justin, because we all really liked his work and appreciate the effort that he puts in for us. We did the Scrambler series for several seasons, where we mix up the car and track combos each week. So not everything works. Not everything is sort of a success. As like with NASCAR, it's the same thing. Like, they try stuff, going to new venues like the LA Coliseum or the Chicago Street Course. Those things aren't always smashing hits, or they're not always intended for longevity necessarily, but they're unique and fun things to try. And so I appreciate that we're able to do stuff. I could tease a little bit our schedule next season. We're going to mix in the tour modified a little bit more than we did with just the one race this season. We are going to go back to Watkins Glen, and we're actually adding 2 weeks to the schedule. So it would be an 18-week schedule, so a little bit more of a grind. But I think we've got 5 tour modified races on the calendar, and it should be a really awesome season. I know I'm excited for it. We'll have some more extended races as well, which I think brings a different element of strategy and tire preservation, especially with the SK Modify, that there isn't a ton of fall off, because the sort of power and grip ratio with that car allows you to really push a little bit harder. So yeah, I think it's been a great experience for me, being able to connect with these guys, either if they're local, like Brian Bianchi and I, like we're just about neighbors, not too far down the road from one another. Aho is another guy that is Massachusetts based, so it's cool. Like, Brian and I went to the races together last year at Thompson for one of the tour modified shows, so that was really awesome. We've kind of been online competitors and friends for a few years now, and then finally got to meet up and go to a race together. And I was supposed to go, if I don't bring this up, Josh and Rob will be blowing up my messages, but I was supposed to go to a race at Stafford with those guys last year. It ended up raining. So they got rained out, and I knew it was going to rain, so I didn't take the chance of driving the 2 hours. And they put they put a seat back on the bleachers and put part-time Eric on the seat back, because for several seasons, whether I was working or finishing my master's degree, I was kind of a part-time racer. So I was dubbed the moniker part-time Eric, which I try to shed that. I think I haven't missed a race yet this season, so we'll try to keep that going. But yeah, they're all just like awesome dudes, and we try to have a good time on the track and off.
Well, you looking over some of the responses that you and I had earlier this week with your questionnaire and all that. You were one of the COVID guys that came in during the COVID era for iRacing. So tell me, how did you discover that iRacing in general, and tell me your journey to league racing, because usually when everybody comes in, they're thrown in the open servers, which at rookie level has the possibility to discourage a lot of people.
Yeah.
So tell me kind of your journey with iRacing to where you're at now.
Yeah, of course. So I had no idea that iRacing existed. I've never been like a gamer, or anyone that did anything like that. So when COVID happened, my wife bought a PlayStation because she felt like we would need something to do, and I remembered being a kid having the NASCAR games and those being really fun. So I got NASCAR. I think it was NASCAR Heat 4. And then that led to the Logitech wheel, and sort of all at the same time, Fox started showing the Pro Invitational races on TV, because there was no real racing going on. So then I started digging into iRacing and saw that they had the modifieds, and I was like, "Holy cow!" What a revelation! Because I grew up going to these races. They're my favorite race cars of any race car. And I remembered playing Dirt to Daytona, when I was a kid on PlayStation. So next thing you know, like, I'm on Best Buy ordering a computer and monitors and like the whole deal. And then it's just really snowballed from there. And so as I was getting into iRacing, I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching like tutorial videos on the setups, or seeing that guys, stream their races, or, whether it's like in-car view while they're driving, or of, an actual broadcast like what VGN does. Again, like, this is like a whole new world to me. So I ended up discovering, red light through watching YouTube, and I was like, that looks awesome. And I emailed Josh through the website, and ended up coming out for the last race of the whatever season that was. I want to say it was season 6, might have been season 5. Raced there. Didn't wreck anybody, so I was happy about that. I didn't self-spin and embarrass myself, so I was happy about that. And then from there, it really like has just taken off. I've just tried to invest a lot of time, and maybe too much money. I don't know. But I spent a lot of time like doing individual coaching sessions with some of the guys from VRS, like Keegan Leahy or Bobby Zielinski, who race in the Coke Series. Keegan's a former Coke Series champion who actually works at 2311 now. He and I still stay in touch on Discord every once in a while. So, that piece of it is really amazing to see how, or William Byron is like another example where, someone sort of comes from the iRacing world and makes their way, into the highest levels of racing, whether it's, in the car behind the wheel or on the engineering side. So, but for me, yeah, it was just like sort of, filling this. Initially, it was just like filling this gap because I couldn't go play golf and I couldn't do other things that I like to do. But once I got into it, it was, for me, very similar to golf, where it's a challenge, for your own like self personally, to see how good you can get and try to get better and work on your skills and work on your racecraft and just learn. And honestly, it's made me enjoy real life racing a lot more, because feel like I understand what I'm watching a little bit better now. With respect to like race strategy, or what a car is doing in the middle of a race, or understanding what a driver's trying to do at a given moment of a race. So it's really been a fun journey, and anything like that where like I'm learning something, I'm able to kind of be creative, and get better at something. I'm going to really sink my teeth into. So that's where we're at with iRacing.
Well, it's kind of cool that that I've never figured out why Fox and them never have gone back and during the off season do a 1 or 2 race just
I
special and
know.
all that, because I've always thought that was just gold, because you could see them in their rigs and their hair down a little bit and actually having some fun. I know a couple guys got in trouble, I think, because they got a little too relaxed and spouted off a couple things that weren't exactly politically correct.
I
But
remember Bubba lost a sponsor.
yeah,
Goodies. I
which
think it was
just
Goodies headache
ridiculous.
powder.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
I
It's
mean,
a freaking game. Lighten up. I
yeah,
mean, the
yeah.
whole thing with Larson, that was a tough deal too. But you know, yeah,
It worked out for him.
well, it did, and that's because the kid has just ungodly
Unbelievable.
amounts of talent. Yeah,
Yeah, unbelievable.
And I'll be honest with you, I kind of enjoyed following him that off season he took, running the dirt tracks. Um, me being a big dirt guy, I love watching Larson. I think he won like 20 some odd races that season on dirt. Just unbelievable. It seemed like everywhere he went, and anything he ran in, he won. From
That's
sprint
his MO.
cars, the late models and everything else. I mean, it was amazing to watch. Um, you talked about being up there in the Northeast and whatnot. So obviously that is big modified country. Tell me some of the tracks that, I mean, I know you went to tracks as a kid. Tell me about some of those and some of the memories that you have from some of those early days of getting around there in the Northeast.
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up going to Stafford and Thompson and the Waterford Speed Bowl with my dad. He lived in upstate New York and had a camper, and he and my stepmom would come down and set up shop for the weekend. Actually, when I was really young, my dad used to help wrench on an SK modified guy by the name of Joe Tizzy, who had a son, Daryl, who also ended up racing SK modifieds at Thompson and at Waterford and Stafford. But yeah, I just remember just the excitement around race weekend, and being together, and picking out your favorite car, and my favorite guy growing up was always Mike McLaughlin, Magic Shoes. He drove the number 12. We also always rooted for the number 4 tour modified, the Mystic Missile, who had a bunch of great drivers over the years. Actually, the Mystic Missile was based in Mystic, Connecticut, where my dad lived for a little bit. So when my brother was young, my dad would bring him to the shop, and they'd let him kind of poke around and sit in the car and stuff. So that kind of accessibility, I think, kind of like grows that love for the sport. And I think that the reality is, like, no one's getting rich doing this at a local level. It's really just a time and money investment. So I think it's really kind of pure in that way. Guys just really doing it because they really love it, and they take a lot of pride in it. Even like if you go to Stafford on a Saturday night and look at the condition that those SK modifieds show up in, they're all immaculate. They look spectacular. David Arute is probably the first one that comes to mind. He drives a really beautiful white, red, and blue number 75, and he actually has a pretty successful YouTube channel now. But his car always looks top notch. Keith Rocco, his car always looks top notch, and you can really just tell like the pride that those guys put into it. So um, uh, there's the one memory that comes to mind was the Thompson 300. It was in 1990. I remember walking from the camper towards the track. There was no action yet. They were, I think, sort of just like getting the cars gridded and moving everything out from the pits out to pit road. And I remember hearing the announcer, who I believe was Ben Dodge, did the announcing at Thompson for a long time. they're sort of running through the roster of names, and they announced Mike McLaughlin's name, and I was a little kid, and I was like, he's gonna win, and then he ended up winning. And so that was really awesome. Your favorite guy actually wins. That weekend that you're there. And I also remember going to see the Tour Modifieds. I think I was in middle school with my dad. It was either '94. I think it was '94. Steve Park was driving the Shiba Racing Sunoco number 8, and which my current SK and Tour Modified is actually inspired by. It's the same sort of scheme, just with my own colors and logos. But I remember watching him at Stafford. I think he won pole. He ended up finishing, I want to say third or fifth in that race. But he was, they were going for a points championship this season. And that was right before he got signed by DEI and went to race for Dale Earnhardt. So that was super exciting as well to see this local guy that what wasn't like kind of coming from huge pockets. It was really just based on talent and potential. Get a ride with the biggest name possibly ever in motorsports. Kind of similar to like Ryan Preece now. Getting his shot in the Cup Series, which he's actually done pretty well when he can keep all four wheels on the ground. He's pretty fast. So you root for those guys. You want to see kind of like the little guy, have a shot. I mean, admittedly, I'm a Chase Elliott fan, but if there's a bigger silver spoon in NASCAR Cup racing, I don't know what it is. I mean, he basically had a deal with Rick Hendrick when he was like 12 years old. Not to diminish any of his talent or anything like that, because he's a fantastic race car driver. But it's fun to see the underdog, get that shot and have some success at the highest level.
Yeah, I mean, even this year was it Bonsignor.
Yeah.
He's got to deal with Joe Gibbs there for this year, so it'd be kind of cool to see what he does. But yeah, that Northeast has got a long history, from the Bodines to the Spencer to McLaughlin. Priest is kind of carried on, but it's a shame Ted Christopher never really got an opportunity either, because that's a guy that was a wheelman.
Yeah. Him and Stefanik, kind of same era driver. Both went Busch North racing at one point in time, and I actually think Stefanik won a championship in Busch North, but it just never sort of went any farther than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, he got some. I think he got some actual Busch Series start. Or, at the time it was called the Busch Series, now the
Right.
Xfinity or whatever. I think he got quite a few starts in there too, and also some truck starts too. I think he had. So
I think you're right.
Yeah, so There's a lot of lineage that comes out of that. Out of that area up there, which is always really cool to see. Well, you mentioned McLaughlin is your favorite, and I always ask people, yeah, okay, your favorite drivers, but there had to be somebody you root against. You actually, so who is a guy that because you talked about heckling drivers,
Yeah.
So who's the guy that you were like, no, this guy, someone needs to take him out?
So right now, although I feel like I'm starting to turn a little bit. I've never rooted for Joey Logano. I would always joke with my family, ABL, anyone but Logano, when we're watching the race on Sundays. I don't know why, he's never resonated with me.
I have some suggestions, but I'll keep them to off here so I don't get in any trouble.
But Logano's from Connecticut, right? He grew up in Middletown, which is a town I actually spent a lot of time in my like high school and sort of early like 20s, with friends, or just sort of traveling around. Actually, Middletown had the closest Taco Bell to me growing up. So if we wanted Taco Bell, we had to drive to Middletown to go get it. I'm trying to think. Corey LaJoie sort of annoys me. I don't know why, even though like he's probably a guy I should root for because he is an underdog, and he's got sort of like the family legacy in auto racing. But yeah, I don't know. I tend to just I kind of in a way like root for everyone. You just want to see good racing. I want to see hard racing, and not someone doing something stupid. Denny Hamlin is another one that's like a razor's edge for me. I listen to his podcast. I love his podcast. I think he's like spot on about a lot of things with respect to kind of the state of NASCAR and like how to keep fans engaged or get fans engaged and things to do to make the racing more interesting. They talk a lot about, obviously the aero and the tire package. But on track, I don't know. I just have a hard time rooting for him. Christopher Bell's another one. I kind of like. I want to root for him, but they're just like, I don't know. Some of these guys, they're just so boring. And I think that's what people miss about the kind of the golden era of NASCAR is like the Darrell Waltrips. Guys that like I mean, that guy was a goofball, but like at least he wasn't bland. He had some personality, and he wasn't afraid to show it. Obviously Dale Earnhardt was one of a kind. Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, I've always rooted for the Hendrick cars, but they were probably the beginning of like almost like the corporate sellout NASCAR driver where things became very buttoned up and professional, and everyone just runs through the litany of sponsors, and it's like this formula that they have to go through during the interviews. I think it's why like a guy like Ross Chastain I kind of root for, although he looks like a real idiot after last week. But like, he's a guy who wasn't afraid to like mix it up, and I kind of appreciated that about him when he came into the Cup Series after, because I had just started to get back into auto racing, and he was in the Xfinity Series, and when he got signed by Trackhouse, or actually I guess it was Chip Ganassi and then Trackhouse, but I remember thinking like he's never going to win. He's too like, mentally he's too erratic, and then he sort of reeled it in a little bit, but he was like right on that fine edge of chaos and control, and now I almost think he's been tuned down a little too much. They gotta as the kids would say, they gotta let him cook, let Ross be Ross, and I think he's a guy who could probably win some races. But I kind of can find a reason to root for most drivers. And there's really only a couple that are not my cup of tea.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wish I could figure out how to change about maybe not even just NASCAR, but racing in general. It's so sponsor
Yeah,
reliant. So, one of these guys pop off or do something on the track, throw a helmet or punch somebody or whatever, their corporate office gets inundated with calls, and stuff like that. And
yeah,
then, that all filters down. And that's just horrible for the sport. I mean, yeah, we need them and it's great. We give them a platform to get their product and that out. But yeah, I'm with you. Let the personalities, come out. I
yeah,
mean, I grew up in an era with AJ Foyt and and,
yeah.
and Rutherford and those guys, and boy, they probably would never make their talent. They would make it today, but I don't think corporate America would warm up to guys like that. I just don't. But
Yeah, probably not, because AJ Foyt he'd put a fist in your face without thinking twice. And even like like the younger guys, you see it too, like watching like the ARCA races or the truck and Xfinity races. I mean, some of these guys are so talented and they're so young. Like Connor Zilic, you look at him like 18 months and change years old. But he's so polished and he is mature. Like you got to give him credit, and he's definitely someone I'm going to root for in the coming years. But it is like it's so formulaic, and they're all coached and trained now. You want to see a little bit more authenticity, I think is really what it comes down to.
yeah, I agree. And you know, you talked about the guys you root for and against and all that kind of stuff, though. That's also too, I think, what makes it. It's good to have your favorites and that. And, in any sports like that. I mean, if you're a Washington Redskins fan, you hate the Cowboys, Eagles, and and Giants. If you're
And yeah,
you're a Yankees fan, you hate Boston, and that's a cool thing about sport. It does have that. And what has been your favorite rivalry? I guess. How about that one that you've seen? The two guys that you just kind of like. Why it doesn't have to be one of your favorite drivers, but what has been your favorite rivalry over the years since you become a racing fan?
so going back to the short track sort of days, at Stafford, it's probably Keith Rocco versus anybody, because he's elbows out and just doesn't care. He races really hard. with the tour modifieds sort of back in the day, just watching like Stefanik, Ted Christopher, and the Fullers race. They always put on really really good shows and were really talented in that race car. Right now, I think like well, it was I guess highlighted last week. Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch, they've got a little bit of history, and Kyle Busch, he's like an elephant. He doesn't forget anytime someone does him wrong, although he doesn't seem to think that he does anything wrong. And I think the Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson dynamic there, because they're friends off the track, but they can't seem to stay out of one another's way on the track. I think is an interesting one because they're both really talented. They're both really fiery competitors. I actually think Larson at times is almost a little too passive or deferential to Denny, and I think he needs to. I think he needs to puff his chest out with him a little bit and maybe send a message.
Well, Kyle's watching here, huh? Then he'll have to maybe take your advice. But yeah, Keith Rocco. I don't know if it was Woody Pitcat, but there's somebody a couple years ago he tangled with, and it was like all over YouTube, and it was like, whoa. They got into, I don't want to say trading paint because they're modifieds, but they got into a nice skirmish, and I think it was at Stafford where they were going at each other pretty good there, and I think they both ended up fenced or something like that. I don't know.
Probably. But, that's usually how it turns out.
Yeah, but outside of racing, you've got another kind of a passion of yours, and it's golf. So, in a lot of you were kind of talking. There's some similarities between racing and golf. So, tell me a little bit about golf and did you say a single-digit handicap?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a 5 index currently. I've been as low as a 2.5. My brother, I have an older brother who lives in San Diego. He's actually a really interesting dude. He's 6 years older than I am. He was a big skier, snowboarder when we were growing up, and then when he graduated high school, he moved to Colorado and actually became a professional snowboarder. He's competed in the X Games.
Oh, wow.
But it was early. It was before the X Games was sort of like really blown up the way we know it now. But he's traveled all over the world. He's taught snowboarding. He's been in commercials. I remember one year during the Winter Olympics, I was at home with I think my high school girlfriend, and a Visa commercial came on television, and I was like, "That looks like Mitch," but you couldn't tell because it was just a snowboarder in ski pants and a puffy jacket and a helmet and everything. But I could the posture. I could see his posture. So I called him and I was like, "Hey, this guy on this commercial looks exactly like you." And he's like, "Yeah, it's me." And he's been in magazines and all that stuff. So when his body could no longer take the snowboarding, he moved to Southern California and ended up going to the golf academy. And now he's an assistant pro at a really nice club out there. But he's about a scratch golfer, so we have a pretty good competition going. I try to keep up with him. And it's just one of those things. Excuse me. It's an intellectual and physical sort of challenge. I think very similar to driving a race car because there's physical skills, but there's also a lot of thought that you've got to put into what you're doing, especially in the moment. Like in the middle of a race, making decisions in real time or making reads on, someone's trying to pass or if you're trying to make a pass. And it's the same with golf. You're working on your preparation before you go play. You're working on your physical skills, and then you've got to kind of make decisions in the moment. In the middle of a round to try to maximize whatever it is that you're going to get that day because. I honestly, iRacing is a little more predictable than golf because you don't have equipment failures and you don't have tires go down and things like that. Whereas golf, I could go out one day and shoot a 72. I could go out the next day and shoot a 92. You kind of don't know what you're going to get, and that's part of the fun and part of the challenge. So anything that's like that where you're like I said, you're able to kind of be creative, you're able to challenge yourself mentally, and it's something that you can improve at and kind of see those tangible results is always going to interest me. So, with golf, it's been watching my scores and my handicap come down over the years. And with iRacing, it's, coming into red light and being lucky if I finished a race or, battling for a top 10. And now, my skills have improved, and obviously, like, I'm out there competing for wins each week.
The golfing, you sounds like you got quite the competition with your brother, so you need to get him in iRacing so you guys can tangle on the track. That
So
should
actually,
add some.
my younger brother, I have another brother. I actually have two other brothers, but my youngest brother Patrick, he was in the Air Force when he got out and got a job and got his first apartment. He went out and got a whole sim rig set up. So I think he's planning to come out and race with us next season with Red Light. Yeah, so that'd be fun. Right now, he's usually on the pit box for me and AJ, helping spot, and he handles all of my pit stop controls and things like that. So that's been really fun. He was on the pit box with me the season that I won the championship. He was a big help that year, and that was a lot of fun to kind of like experience that with him. And actually, the Thompson race that I won earlier in the season, I had traveled to North Carolina. I talked about it a little bit in my interview with Soup that night, but my dad got sick recently. He was diagnosed with a pretty treatable form of cancer, but cancer nonetheless. And so I had gone down there to be with them for an appointment that they had at Duke University Hospital, but they live in Wilmington, so I had to fly into Charlotte and then take a puddle jumper out to Wilmington. And it was the week that there was like that huge cold snap through the South, and they got a bunch of snow, so the roads were basically undrivable. So I flew into Charlotte and then was stranded there. So my brother drove from Blacksburg, Virginia, which is about 2.5 hours, picked me up. I spent 2 days with him, and I was actually able to race in his rig at Thompson, and was able to win that race, which was really pretty special. Probably, regardless of what happens the rest of the season, I would say that's probably going to be the most memorable race and moment of the season for me, just given the circumstances of everything going on with my family, and then the chaos with the travel and being on someone else's sim. That was a really exciting night.
Yeah, you talk about the mental aspect of things. To kind of focus in on what you're doing at night and all that, it probably was both a nice distraction and not a welcome relief kind of thing. But that's that's kind of cool. I don't think I've ever raced and gone and done a race in somebody else's rig or anything like that. Was it, I've sat in other people's race cars and stuff, and drivers tend to put things in the race car how they want, where they want things. Your from your steering wheel to everything. So
Yeah.
was it weird sitting in there? Did you have to, from a creature comfort standpoint, was it just okay? I'm ready to go, or did you have to? Why are you doing this, man?
Yeah. So it definitely was weird because I have a very specific way that I sit, and like I have racing boots that I wear, and I wear gloves, and I have all of the overlays in iRacing in very specific spots and all of that. Luckily Pat has some pretty nice gear. He's got a pretty nice Fanatec wheelbase and a track racer setup. But I was in socks. I usually don't race in socks. I didn't have gloves. So it was a little uncomfortable. And I also race in VR, which Pat doesn't have that. He had a monitor. So I had to I just really had to kind of recalibrate everything.
Single monitor, or did he have curved or?
Yeah, it's like an ultra wide curved monitor. So it's a super nice monitor. And you have a little bit better field of view than just like a 32-inch like flat monitor. But it was still definitely an adjustment because I have an ultra wide at home that I'd raced on for a long time, and then I upgraded my computer. And when I did that, I went back to the VR, thinking I would kind of like swap back and forth depending on the length of the race or whatever it was that I was doing. But I feel like once you get in the virtual reality, the immersion is so detailed. It's really hard to go back. because for Daytona 24 this year, my VR was being a little glitchy. So I went back and I was going to try to just race on the ultra wide, and I felt so just so out of whack. I couldn't get my braking markers down, and I couldn't feel what the car was doing, and it was just really disruptive. So I ended up doing it in VR, and it worked out good. Our team actually we won our split, which
Nice.
was pretty awesome. Yeah, shout out to those guys. Actually, they're red light guys that raced on Monday. Jeffrey Souza, Bill Benedict, and Ethan Trotman. We were able to win our split, so that was really fun. And Ethan made up these little sort of custom. They look like little license plates because we named our team Scarlet Thunder because we raced the Ferrari. So he made these little custom license plates for us, which is a pretty cool little keepsake now in the wake of that race. But yeah, going back and forth, it took. I mean, it's not like it was completely foreign to me because it's how I used to race. And luckily, I kind of had like the day. Prior, leading up to to race night, to be able to play around and get some settings dialed in and just get comfortable. So it really at that point in time, my mindset was just survive the race. If I could scrape out a top 10, that was going to be really a huge victory considering the circumstances. But I had a couple of good spots there. The first there were really two critical moves because obviously Thompson is top line dominant, and so we on a restart, I think I restarted in fifth, and I was able to sneak ahead of the car that was in sixth and quickly scoot to the outside. So I ended up in fourth. So on the following restart, I was in fourth. I was on the outside line. That got me to second. And then on the restart after that, I was able to beat Jeff Aho into turn one and take the lead with I think about 30 laps to go, and then was able to hang on from there. But yeah, it was definitely a surprise victory, a pretty sweet one. So I was really thankful for Patrick that he elected to get into iRacing. Otherwise, I would have been stranded down there.
That's a cool story. I should have asked earlier. You being up there in the Northeast, I think Stafford, Thompson. What is it like for you when you got into the sim to race at those tracks that you were at as a kid? That has to be kind of cool on some level.
Such a thrill. The very first thing I did when I got iRacing and downloaded the game and got everything set up, I took the SK modified out at Thompson, and then I took the SK modified out at Stafford. And it was amazing because I grew up going to these tracks and watching these guys race, and now here I am. And actually, I think it was that first winter, so that I got online. I think it was like May or June of 2020, and then that winter, Kyle Souza did sort of a Thompson, like a special Thompson series. So there were some real life drivers as well as some guys that just raced in the sim. I think Brian Bianchi raced in that. We sort of represented Red Light together, and a couple other guys. And we got to get on track with some real life guys in the sim at Thompson. And I think Brian actually even raced in one or two of the Stafford shows. Because over that COVID winter, Stafford would do racing on Friday nights with select group of drivers like Kyle Souza and a bunch of other guys. I know like Mike Christopher, Brian Arducci. I'm sure I'm going to forget some, but like a lot of those guys all have are all on iRacing, and so that was really cool too, to be able to see. Sort of connect that like real life to the sim, and then you can get online and you kind of compare yourself to the real life show. I remember running some laps at New Hampshire in the tour modified, and then going on Racing Reference and seeing like what the pole time was in like the previous year's races, and to see how that compared and all that. So yeah, it's a huge thrill. We've also tried to engage some real life racing sponsorship. We had Race Day CT come on board as a primary grid sponsor this year, which is really awesome. Sean Corshane, who runs that site and covers short track racing all over the Northeast and really beyond. If you think about his coverage of the Wheel and Modify Tour, he also does weekly previews for Ryan Preece each week. So he sort of does like a preview for what Preece's Cup race is going to look like that week. So we were lucky to have him come on board and just kind of creating that connection again between the sim and real life. I think has been fun. I think we'll try to continue to do that in the future. Get some others sponsorship engaged if we're lucky. But yeah, it was a thrill before it sort of became a passion. Initially it's just kind of like this unique sort of quirky thing that you're doing, and then as you sink your teeth in a little bit more, it really has become a passion.
Well, that's so cool that you get to do that. I got local tracks here, and I think everybody now they've got enough tracks scanned. I think most everybody has a local track they can go to. So that I think it's got to be one of the appeals to iRacing. I can't even imagine when I was a kid or something, somebody would have pulled up one of my local tracks that I could go and hop in. That's a cool thing to be able to do in this day and age. You talked a little bit about your brothers and whatnot, but how about immediate family? You married? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Married. My wife Lauren. We've been married rather for 7.5 years. We've been together for I guess 9.5 years. Our anniversary is in September. It'll be 8 years. Our anniversary is actually the day after my birthday. So it's a very, very tough one to forget, which is good for me. We have a 7-year-old golden retriever named Rosie. She's really kind of the light of our life. We don't have kids. We just have the golden, and she's a fantastic dog. So much personality, and just brings a lot of joy to our life. And then family wise, my mom's in Still, Connecticut, where I grew up in my hometown. My dad and my stepmom they live in like I said, Wilmington, North Carolina. And then my in-laws are in New Hampshire in the Monadnock area. My father-in-law is a dentist up there. So we see them quite a bit. We spend a lot of time with them. Actually, Lauren has a younger sister who just started at UConn. She's in her first year at UConn, which is super exciting because I grew up a huge Huskies fan. And obviously they've had a lot of success on the basketball court, especially the last couple of years. So that's been super fun. Get them like involved now. They watch the games every night whenever they're on, and we text about it. And yeah, so basically, my entire family is from the Northeast. Or I guess my dad actually moved from Indianapolis when he was a teenager, but spent most of his life in Connecticut until they moved south a few years ago. And actually, back in 2010, my dad and my brother Patrick, we did a road trip out to Indianapolis to the 500, which was really fun. So we drove from Connecticut all the way out there. It was a long drive. Got to spend time with some family that I'd never met. So that was really cool. Got to go to the race. I think at the time it was the hottest 500 to date. It was something like 96 or 98 degrees with high humidity. It was just like unbelievably hot and insufferable. But we made it through the entire race. I don't remember who won, but it was a really fun experience. So, excuse me. Yeah, so that's basically it on the family front. We live just outside Boston in a town called Needham. My wife works for a financial technology company. She works from home, and right now I'm home because unfortunately I'm actually out of work. I got laid off at the beginning of the year, so I'm on the market. So if anyone out there needs a seasoned construction manager or real estate developer, you can give me a call. But yeah, so I'm home right now, and that's probably contributing to some of my success as well, because I'm getting a little bit more time on the sim than I normally would. But yeah, we have have a pretty sort of quiet existence here. We drive to New Hampshire, quite often, and as we say, we bring Rosie to the country, and go see my in-laws and enjoy hanging out with them and cooking and eating and drinking and just having a good time together. And then yeah, when I'm lucky enough to get down to North Carolina and see my dad, which is probably not as frequently as either of us would like, we'll get down there. But we do have some dates planned to get together for some races this year. My dad just retired, and they bought an RV. So when he gets healthy and back up and running, I think we have Martinsville on the books for later this year, and they're going to come up to New Hampshire to Loudon for the September weekend. So we'll go to that, and I think there's one other one we had on the calendar that I can't remember off the top of my head, but and yeah, like I said, like they all tune in every week. My dad tunes in. My aunt Jean, who lives out in Texas, she tunes in and watches this race. And my mom texts me every Thursday to wish me good luck. And then she watches the race. And then, you kind of do the little debrief with everyone after the race or the next day, and, kind of tell them what you were thinking or, what went on. And I know, like the weeks that it doesn't go well, they're always like, what was that guy thinking? Or something like that. Or in the weeks that it does go well, it's just like notes of congratulations. So it's really been kind of this cool thing that everyone has been able to participate in some way. Like I said, Patrick either getting into iRacing or just being on the pit box with me to help out each week. Or my family tuning in and being able to watch me race. I think it's a thrill for them, and I get a kick out of it. My wife tunes in as well. I actually think she enjoys it maybe more than she lets on. She's not a race fan, but she does seem to pay attention when I'm on the track, which I appreciate. Because it's time away from us doing something together, or whatever the case may be. And she's supportive. I think she likes that it's an outlet for me, and it's something that brings me a lot of joy and makes me happy and is fun to do. And I think she gets a kick out of it. So yeah, it's a family affair.
That's really cool. It's cool that they watch too. That's got to be a cool feeling. No pressure every Thursday, huh? They're all watching, critiquing.
Yeah.
But that's cool that you got that New Hampshire that fall race is one I've kind of always circled that I'd like to get up there and go do, just for the single fact that those tour mods are on the track. What is it, Friday of that weekend or whatever it is, maybe even Saturday morning, I'm not even sure, but man, I bet you those things are awesome to watch there.
It's always been my favorite race of the year. I mean, I know it's not a traditional short track, and that is they're definitely a short track car. But to watch them on that mile oval slice and dice and watching them pass with sort of the dive bomb, into one or into three, and the guy that's leading the race, he kind of knows it's coming, so he gives that space, but then he sets up the run, down the front or back stretch to be able to return the favor. And yeah, there's just been some incredible races. Last year, the race that Bonsignor won, it was one of the most exciting races I've ever watched. They were, just like photo finish coming to the line. And more often than not, they put the best show of the weekend on. Although I think this year I think they're racing. It's at like 9 a.m. or something weird like that. I don't know what NASCAR is doing with that decision. Hopefully they correct that. But yeah, it's always a thrill, and to see those cars in that setting, and also it's just, again, a little more up close and personal with the short track scene than like going to like a cup race at Charlotte or something like that, where you just don't quite have the accessibility. So yeah, love that, and I love that track. I love it really with any car. I think it's a really challenging track with just flat corners. There's no banking. You really have to manage your equipment, and it's difficult to make speed. And I think it's one that showcases a different skill set than a traditional like mile and a halfer. And you mentioned Bonsignor earlier. Yeah, he had an incredible run up there last year. He basically ran the entire race in the top 5 in the 19 car until Sam Mayer did what Sam Mayer does and spun him out in turn 2 on a restart. And I think Bonsignor is scheduled to run 10 races with Joe Gibbs this year, is what I've heard. So that'd be really awesome. I don't know if that leads to a full-time ride or anything like that, but yeah, and seeing the short track guy get some recognition and get a shot in a top NASCAR series is really awesome. And to see a guy like him hold his own and do really well is even better.
I couldn't agree more. Another good track for those tour mods. I don't go to them in real life, but in iRacing, if you guys ever want to give it a shot, is take those tour mods and go to Milwaukee. It's very similar layout, but man, that's probably the most fun in the sim that I've had at a tour mod is Milwaukee. So, but hey, you know what? We're wrapping up here and coming to an end here. So I do want to get the green white checkered in. I don't know if you've ever watched the show or not, but just 3 quick kind of rapid fire things I want to throw at you. You ready to play along?
Yeah, lay it on me.
All right. In this day and age, well, at this point in time in your life, golfing or iRacing?
Right now, it's iRacing, especially because it's winter, and I feel like relatively speaking, I'm probably a better iRacer than I am a golfer. But golf season is around the corner. I just got the email that our men's league is kicking off the first weekend of April, so I'll get back to it and then try to hopefully balance it out. I race during the week and golf on the weekend.
That's awesome. Okay. SK or the Tour mod? Which one do you like better watching, and which one do you like better driving in the sim?
That is incredibly hard to answer. So I guess it's a great question. I would say that the SK modified on a Saturday night at Stafford is really hard to beat, regardless. But the Tour modified is sort of the for me like the original, because it was the Winston modifieds in the 80s and 90s, and then it became the Featherlight modified Tour, and then ultimately the Whelen Tour. So I'd have to give a slight edge to the Tour modified, just for maybe the speed. And in the sim, probably the tour modified as well. I think it's obviously it's a little harder with the extra power, and I think it rewards a more methodical sort of strategic drive better than the SK modified does.
All right, and the last one, probably, at least is my opinion, the most important one. Small batch or single barrel bourbon? Which one?
Oh, that's a tough one too. I think my sort of go-to bourbon of choice at the moment is the New Riff single barrel. So I'm going to go with the single barrel.
Single barrel. Okay, I'm an Angel's Envy guy. So, and I'm asking everybody. Yeah, everybody. He has got a collection of bourbon. Tell everybody real quick, how many was it? 90?
At peak, it was, I think, 90 bottles with like 60 different varieties. And not all of those are, special. Those are just things that like you pick up at the store and you try, or someone gives you a gift or something like that. But yeah, I had, I think at max, it was like 90 bottles. I would say probably, excluding the really high end stuff, right? Like the Van Winkle or the super exclusive stuff. I would say my top 3 favorite bourbons are probably Eagle Rare, Henry McKenna, and after that, probably any Weller that you can get your hands on.
I have a teammate that's kind of a bourbon connoisseur, so he's going to watch this and probably text you, I would imagine. Hey, we got to meet up, but yeah, very cool. Thank you so much for playing along there. And the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up here is the next time you're on the track. I believe it's going to be Southern National, right?
Yep, Southern National. We have 125 laps Thursday night in the SK modified. Race preview for me is I don't quite know what to expect. There's several tracks that I feel really confident and really strong at, Stafford being one of them. Southern National historically has not been a great a great track for me. I just can't quite get that right rhythm. I had said to Soup a couple of weeks ago that I thought the first half of the schedule for me on Thursday nights was important because there were tracks that I was a little more comfortable at. New Smyrna, excuse me, is another one that I really like and feel like I have good speed at. I've got some tough ones coming up. Southern National, Oxford, Oswego are all tracks that I really
Oh,
tend
Oxford.
to tend to not love. Yeah. So I think the points lead that I have right now is great. The wins are great. Don't get me wrong, but you'd asked about my approach. My approach is to keep pushing because as we see, these things can be very fickle even when you're out front. You just don't know what's going to happen. And any one of these guys, Aho, Bianchi, AJ, they're all capable of going on a run and ripping off, 2 or 3 in a row. So I got to keep my head down and keep focused on racing smart and trying to bring good speed each week and get good finishes and maintain that lead. I also want to say, while I have a moment, I have really enjoyed the transition for us to VGN. We had a fantastic broadcast partner for a long time who elected to step away, and I think as an admin and as someone who races in the league, the broadcast is really important to me because I know that people get excited about it. I know that their friends and their family watch, and that is something that we, most of us all really look forward to. And I think it's really great what you guys are doing. You're really sort of like a full service network. You're not just a broadcaster. You've got like this podcast that you do each week. You guys do the write-ups on your site for the results of the races each week. And obviously the broadcasts are great. I think the way that you all approach it, at least for us on Thursdays with Soup and JR, that sort of play-by-play and color like commentary. JR being a really accomplished iRacer and being able to provide his input from inside the car, behind the wheel. What we're dealing with, what we're trying to do with the car, has really been a fantastic addition to Red Light. So just wanted to say that really appreciate you guys and looking forward to having you back next season and letting this partnership grow in the seasons to come.
Well, we appreciate it, and I know Lowell and the crew and Ryan, everybody takes pride in what they do, and they do a really good job with it. So it's I feel fortunate to be part of that team, even though I just show up on Sundays and run my mouth. So it's kind of I probably have the easiest job of everybody. But yeah, VGN has come a long way. I remember I was around when Lowell was kicking around the idea for doing it, and man, it has really come a long way. So it's we're glad that you guys like watching, and we look forward to continuing that partnership with you guys there at Red Light. So, but man, I do want to thank you for popping on here and hanging out with us here for a while, and I cannot wait to see you Thursday night to see how you tackle the old Southern National there, and hopefully you find your rhythm, man.
Gonna try my best. That's all you can do. And yeah, it was great talking with you, John. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we get to do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. I can't wait to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yep. And that's going to wrap it up here for this week on VGN Weekly. We thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Coming up on VGN, the RLR Skitter Creek SK Modified Series will be live from Southern National Speedway on Thursday, March 13th at 7:55 p.m. The BRL Modifieds and Late Models from New Smyrna Speedway will air on Saturday, March 15th at 7:40 p.m. The OBRL Yesteryear Cup Series goes live at 8 p.m. from Las Vegas Motor Speedway on Sunday, March 16th. And catch the next episode of VGN Weekly at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, March 18th. All times are Eastern. You can see our full schedule and more at virtualgrip.net.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of VGN Weekly. Join us next time for race recaps, interviews, and much, much more. Please like and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our broadcasts. If you are a league owner or potential sponsor and have a broadcasting need, please visit virtualgrip.net for info on how to get in touch with us. This has been a production of the Virtual Grip Network and the Skitter Creek Motorsports Group.